I just found out about this today. I'm not a good storyteller, but basically this story involves 3 people in my family: Uncle Albert, now dead, Uncle Tim, still alive, and my mom. I'll try and keep it short. Uncle Albert recently fell ill. Doctors aren't sure what's wrong with him. He falls into a coma, and his body doesn't respond to any treatments. Mom and Uncle Tim have to make the call to pull the plug. I still remember getting Mom's text, "Please pray for me, son. I don't feel strong enough to do this." It was not a good day. Before this, I often overheard my mom on the phone with my grandma and other uncles. Mom kept mentioning some woman with a very unusual name. For the sake of the story, I'll just call her Sarah. During this whole ordeal with my dying uncle, Mom seems particularly stressed about this woman Sarah. I keep hearing things like, "I swear I saw that evil bitch Sarah when I pulled into the hospital this morning." I didn't wanna ask any questions since Mom already seemed overwhelmed. But last night something happened, and today my mom shared a few things with me. Apparently, before Uncle Albert fell ill, Uncle Tim kept finding things in his house moved around. Nothing stolen, just things where they shouldn't be. Uncle Tim has a neighbor, a nice older man who was retired. Uncle Tim asked him if he could keep an eye on his house while he was at work. The old neighbor obliged. Later, he told my uncle that a woman kept coming by while he was gone. She never went in, just parked her car on the curb and sat there looking at the house. Then she'd drive off. Freaked out, Uncle Tim tells my mom and others about this. Uncle Albert decides to go to the old neighbor's house and wait there. The woman comes by and Uncle Albert recognizes her right away. It's my Uncle Tim's ex-girlfriend, Sarah. The very same one my mom kept mentioning. Uncle Albert hasn't seen her in years. He watches as Sarah gets out of the car and places something on the ground near Uncle Tim's house. The old neighbor says, "I've never seen her leave the car before." When she leaves, Uncle Albert walks over to the house. When he sees the object, he pulls out his Zippo and sets the thing on fire. He told my mom he'd seen something like it before and that Sarah must be involved in witchcraft. He also told my Uncle Tim about it and described it, but neither would tell my mom what it was. 2 days later, Uncle Albert goes to the hospital. Then he falls into the coma, and you know the rest. Now, while Uncle Albert was in a coma, Uncle Tim hadn't been spending much time at his house. He usually went to the hospital right after work. He was also staying with my grandmother to keep her company during the whole ordeal, so basically his house was empty for weeks. But a few days after pulling the plug on his brother, Uncle Tim thought about what Uncle Albert had told him, about Sarah and the weird object, whatever it was. Uncle Tim decides to pay his old neighbor a visit. He asks the old man if he'd seen anything unusual. The old neighbor says Sarah came by again, just once, right around the time they pulled the plug on Uncle Albert. Sarah had walked around the house. She stopped at every window, tapping on the glass, then she left. The neighbor hadn't seen her again. This freaked Uncle Tim out and he decided to stay at a motel for a few days. Eventually, though, he had to go back home. He called my mom and told her what the neighbor had seen and said he was scared. Mom asked why, but Uncle Tim wouldn't say. Mom invited him to stay with us, but eventually he seemed to calm down and said he'd think about it. Then he went home, and for a few days everything seemed fine. But then something happened. In the middle of the night, Uncle Tim called my mom in a panic and asked her to come over immediately. Mom usually goes to bed early, around 9 p.m. I'm usually up till about 2 in the morning, so I heard when she got up and hurried out of the house. It was around midnight more or less. Before I could even get to the front door, she was already in her car speeding away. She didn't come back that night. The next day she came home, and I asked her what happened. She told me Uncle Tim was in the hospital. She said he looked bad, and the doctors didn't know what was wrong. I'm not sure what's going on, and I don't know if some crazy bitch is actually using witchcraft on my family, but my mom said Uncle Tim looked exactly how Uncle Albert looked before he fell into a coma. He was having these episodes where his whole body would go stiff. Then his eyes would go wide and begin to dart around the room. I'm not close to Uncle, but I'm really worried for my mom. I don't want her to lose another brother. Anyone know how to combat witchcraft? I always kinda wrote it off till my mom told me this.